And hello and welcome to this week's episode of Media Musings. Currently, we have Sam, Chaos, and Critical Cripple in the chat. Hello to both of you. And of course, hello to anyone who is lurking who is currently lurking or who may be watching in the future. Now, of course, this week we are talking about censorship and cancel culture. And of course, all the thanks to my one and only patron, Santi the Same.
I feel like I should open a discussion on censorship with the words, "I'm keeping my trap shut."
Oh, and hello to Never Again.
Oops. So I just realized I was had to unmute myself, or either that or Ring was censoring me. I wasn't sure what's going on there.
Well, if it's done for the purpose of audio quality, I don't think it counts as censorship.
Hmm.
I think that counts as a technical difficulty.
Yeah. Or trying to avoid technical difficulties. Because can't handle random background noises while the intro's playing.
Fair. And where I live, that's entirely a possibility, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Wish I could censor some of that lot. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's start off and define some terms here, what we all call censorship and cancel culture, because those words get bandied about a lot.
Now,
and I think it's important we actually define what we're talking about.
If I didn't self-censor, I'd still be locked up.
Yeah, it's difficult one to define because people seem to all have their own definitions of it, especially when it comes to like the internet and social media. Especially the word censorship and cancel culture gets thrown around a lot. Now, for example, somebody, loses, sometimes people have lost their YouTube channel or their, or something like that. And you do have to also remember when you are effectively a creator on someone else's platform, you kind of are beholden to their rules, and you've got to understand that. But it definitely, and because it's a lot of people conflate, like their sort of freedoms on the, on certain medias, on certain internet sites with, sort of, government censorship and so on. And it happens all the time. It's,
Now, I do kind of put like censorship into two separate categories.
Go on.
So, there's censorship where the government is dictating, okay, no, this will not be printed. Which, at least in the U.S., the First Amendment is supposed to, protect against that. Supposed to, from being prosecuted by the government for saying things. Now, then there's cultural censorship, and I have a very specific, definition for that, in where you're in either through religion or other means, where you're in a culture that restricts your access to various forms of media and ideas.
You live in America.
Yeah.
I went there for a month and it was like falling off the edge of the planet. I didn't know what was going on in the world.
Yeah, I mean, this is where... I mean, obviously, as it pertains to media as such, It's again, it can have an awful lot of different, when it comes to censorship, can have an awful lot of different things, whether it be, you know, censorship of art or, you know, TV, whatever it, TV, film, music, whatever it may be. And it may be just trying to put restrictions on certain themes or so on. And sometimes it's not necessarily. Sometimes it's the sort of media outlets themselves that self-censor their content, and then
like a good example that we went into vast detail about last week was the Comics Code Authority and what they, you know, what their guidelines did to an entire medium, at least in the States, for decades. Like the medium itself is still trying to recover from that.
Yeah. I will say as well, we do have to differentiate between art and entertainment and factual content. Because for me, when it comes to artistic or entertainment content, I am, in the case of when the content is aimed at adults who are presumably capable of critical thinking, I am radically anti-censorship.
Yeah.
I am also, to an extent, well, not to an extent, because I just am, I'm radically anti-sensitive in the field of politics. I believe if you have something to say, however horrendous it may be, you have the right to say it. I also have the right to throw an egg at you if I don't like it.
Yeah.
This is how things work.
Yeah.
And obviously from a government point of view, again, I don't believe the government really, unless someone is advocating actual harm or is inciting harm, the government has no right to step in and stop anyone saying whatever the hell they want to say.
Yeah, and I think as well, I mean,
in now, children's media and news media are two totally different things, because news media is defined as factual and therefore should remain within the boundaries of fact. There should not be speculation. There should, insofar as it's possible to present an unbiased source within a party political system where news sites are aligned to party political values, they should stick to the facts of the case. But in children are not necessarily capable of dealing with certain themes and issues that I think, you know, I'm not going to sit a child down and make them watch, you know, well, my parents did, but I'm not going to sit an 8-year-old down and make them watch Uncut Bruce Lee with all the gore and the fighting and everything else.
Yeah.
You know, I could handle it at that age. Kids, not so much. It depends on the kid. Yeah. But again, that's for the parents to decide. That's a parent's decision.
That's why a functional, emphasis on the word functional, rating system is a good idea when it comes to most forms of media that kids will interact with.
I mean, I will admit, most films, if I've never heard of the film but I've had it recommended to me, I will go on doesthedogdie.com and type the film in and have a look and see what's there. That's not censorship. That's preparing myself for what I could be looking at.
Yeah.
Okay. And I equally agree on social media. Now, I've seen some nasty pieces of work on social media. Yeah. We have a channel punching bag for a reason. 10 minutes in and I'm in.
Yeah.
Right? But she has the right to say it. I don't have to listen to it. No one has to listen to it. You can block her, mute her, scroll past, do whatever.
Yeah.
You don't have to accept it. You can argue back. She has the right to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if she doesn't have the right to say that, I don't have the right to stand up and say, I am a socialist, I believe in free. I don't have the right to say anything if she doesn't.
Yeah. And Sam in the chat, definitions are important because I distinguish between censorship and deplatforming, but I hear a lot of people don't do that. I differentiate between censorship and...
I was going to say, because...
Yeah, I was going to say, I have a right not to listen to her. And any company that runs for a profit like Twitter or Facebook, anything like that, has the right to say, no, we don't want to put you on our platform.
Yeah.
Your views do not align with our values. They have the right to do that. That's not censorship, that's deplatforming. What I'm talking about is no one has the right to, again, as an example, channel punching bag, no one has the right to make threats. No one has the right to tell her that she does not have the right to say what she thinks and to find a platform that will host her views. No one has the right to take those options from her.
I actually do think with the obviously the title of this stream, I think we actually do need to actually distinguish between what we call censorship and cancel culture, because I think those imply two very different things to me. That what we've seen with cancel culture, or what one time we had this thing we called it call out culture and so on, but it's I mean, this is something that is more prevalent in sort of social media terms, or sometimes. I mean, I was not saying to say it doesn't happen in the real world, of course, but it is something that is rife on social media, and yes, it's
The thing is, sorry to interrupt you, Jeff, but it does happen in the real world. People do form counter protests when problematic speakers appear at Parliament Square. That happens. It does happen in the real world. That is just cancel culture in the real world. That's what that is. And that is a vital part of any democratic society. People have the right to say, I agree or disagree. This is why, this is where I stand on it. People have that right. Now,
I mean,
I think the world would be a much poorer place if people weren't organising against people like frigging Farage and the BNP and whoever the hell else is making, racist speeches outside Parliament.
In instances like that, there is the whole, and people just sort of do have a right to, obviously to counter protest and something like that. I think a lot of the time is what is the healthy amount of call out. I think maybe it's what we could call call out culture and cancel culture. What is a healthy amount of that, and where does it cross a line? Is a very interesting conversation, and we've seen it. Certainly, we've seen this on anyone who's been on Twitter for any length of time. We see this to a point where it is absolutely ridiculous. Or YouTube,
there is a definite difference between opposing and harassing, or bullying. And I think that's where the line is. Because for me, if I see something I disagree with, say on Twitter, a tweet, I will respond to it once. If I get a response from someone else, I will respond to them and respond as per. I am not going to go in 5, 6, 7 times an hour and be putting responses on constantly. I am not going to go in and demand this person change their opinion because of my response. If they do, great. We've had a discussion and it's been productive. If they don't, I don't have the right to tell anyone else how to think.
Yeah.
I have just put something in the chat.
Yep.
There was an issue with cancel culture going on in the Hannibal fandom a couple of months ago now. About 6-8 weeks ago, and I got caught up in the middle of it, and I was in the space of a couple of days, I had racial abuse, I had sexist abuse, I was harassed. I had to actually lock. Some of you probably noticed I actually had to lock my main Twitter account because people were going from my fandom Twitter account to that one to find information about me. And there's still an ongoing discussion in the Hannibal fandom about all of that. But I decided, no, I'm not going to descend into a tagging match, and I basically wrote an essay. Yeah. So that's my essay. And that's my stance on it. Now, one thing because we talk about censorship, but the definition of censorship is the government stopping you saying something.
Yeah.
Now, unless you are actively harming someone, unless you are calling for, I've got to think about what I say so YouTube doesn't flag this stream.
Yeah.
But, unless you're actively calling for a race war or something like that, you have the right to say whatever the hell you damn well please. And I might not like it, but I will kill and die for your right to say it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you cannot battle an idea. You cannot battle an ideology if it's hidden and it's silenced.
Yeah.
All that does is make people whisper it instead of shout it.
Yeah.
It's
a lot of people. A lot of people seem to think cancel culture is permanent canceling without redemption. I disagree with that definition, but if you do take that one, it can be a negative thing.
Yeah, I think everyone has the right to apologize and be allowed to grow from a mistake. When it's repeated instances of the same thing, they're not learning, they're not growing, they're not taking the criticism on board. That's the point at which I say, well, enough's enough. Yeah.
And a lot of it seems like a lot of the time when people start screaming about cancel culture, they're more complaining about people using their freedom of speech to call them out on their bullshit.
Yeah, that happens an awful lot. This is like Hissy gave the example there of like the counter protest to somebody like a far right group, and you do a counter protest. Their instant go to will be they're trying to cancel us. Which I'm going to say I'll be totally honest. In certain respects, they are, because there is sometimes a legitimate reason to try to stop them from marching in a certain area or whatever. Unopposed, where when you're dealing, but then again, you are sometimes then dealing with groups who are likely to be violent if they are not opposed. So you're getting into a different territory altogether there. This is, but I think this is the thing. It's something I don't think necessarily we know all the answers to this, but it's something we get screamed, cancel culture, censorship all the time. And I don't think necessarily people always delve into what exactly is censorship, what exactly is cancel culture. And I think we are all going to have some slightly different opinions on it, and to what benefits it has and to what negative effects it has. We're probably all going to have different opinions on where those lines are.
I think,
and I'm glad to see that YouTube hasn't nuked us yet.
I have to say as well, as someone who has been in, again, I'm going to use fandom spaces as my example.
Yeah.
That's the least triggering version of this story I've got to tell.
Yeah.
I remember fandom spaces before Archive of Our Own. I've been in fandom spaces that long.
Yeah.
They were hell. You spent your time terrified you were going to get, for writing, 1,000-word fan fiction, you were going to get a letter from Anne Rice threatening to sue you. You were spending your time writing disclaimers and putting warnings across everything and, basically pleading with the author if they found it not to sue you. And I was doing this at 11, 12 years old. I was well aware that I was in a subculture that was heavily censored and was considered out of the ordinary. Now, that's changed a lot in the last 20 years. But, fan fiction has become more mainstream-ish.
Or to borrow a line from the greatest jukebox musical of all time, they won their court case, so they're marching today. Who? The fucking Nazi Party.
Nuke!
Illinois Nazis. I hate Illinois Nazis.
Yeah. But when Archive of Our Own came out, they said Archive of Our Own hires lawyers to defend the rights of fan artists. Archive of Our Own defends the right to put any content in the archive so long as it is suitably tagged and trigger warnings are applied.
Yeah.
You can put anything you want on there. Like the most horrendous, violent, gory scenes. You name, you can put it on there, and they will defend your right to have it there in any fandom, and they will do that. What Archive of Our Own does have, though, is if you mark your fan fiction as 18 plus, the reader, unless they are logged in and have set their settings to tell them not to do this, has to actively click a button that says I am happy to proceed and understand that I may see triggering content.
Yeah.
There are tag clouds. There are warning systems in place. So to me, that's not censorship. That's just common sense. Okay, if I'm watching something on the TV with a lot of camera flashes, I expect a warning for people who've got epilepsy.
Yeah,
that's all that is. People have the choice whether they want to read it or not, but it's there.
And Never Again says, I used to say that bit, I'll defend to the death your right to say what you need to say. I have big boundary about where and when you may do so, and if I actually have to listen.
I will defend your right to say it, even as I turn my back on you and refuse to listen to you.
Yeah.
You still have the right to say it. You don't have the right to force me to listen.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
That's the same, though, as what platform will take you.
Well, if you can find a platform that will take you, have at it.
My point is there's no obligation for any platform to take you.
No, but then you can form your own platform.
Yeah.
If you have something you think is worth saying, you will find a way to get that message out there.
Now, the reason I put up Never Again's comment kind of dovetails into something I was going to say sometime during this stream, so, coincidences.
Mm-hmm.
But, I kind of take an Uncle Ben approach to free speech, especially in the age of the internet.
I'm not sure who Uncle Ben is, to be honest.
This is a Spider-Man reference.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
not a Rice reference.
Yeah. The freedom of speech, especially in the age of the internet, is a great power. And with great power, there must also come great responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sat here saying that you've got the right to start slagging people off and harass them. And no. What I'm saying is, think about what you've got to say. But if you've got something to say and you're willing to defend it, then you have the right to say it.
Yeah.
And I mean, right to say it.
And I mean, part of
you have the right to say it. It's non-negotiable. You have the right to say it.
Yeah, there's only really partially, the reason we call her the channel punching bag is only partially for the meme.
Mm.
It's up to the viewers and the panel members to decide how much a part of the meme, what percentage of it is just memeing. But
yeah, but the difference is we're not sending her a link to these streams every hour.
Yeah,
we're not viciously attacking her on a personal basis for things she has no control over.
Yeah,
we're not advocating for anyone to harm her. Absolutely not. We're not doing that. What we're doing is taking that she holds several beliefs that we fundamentally disagree with, and therefore we are mocking them, as is our right.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing.
You then have to determine the line in the same way that Twitter, when Twitter first started, it started getting into trouble and then having to police rape threats.
Well, rape threats are a threat.
Yes, but the point
Trigger,
is,
trigger warning.
No.
Yeah.
no.
Threats
Hissy,
are
hold on.
misunderstanding
No,
me
I
here.
have never once said that
No.
threats
You need
normally.
to please
Hold on,
listen.
Hissy, let him finish. Let him
Please
finish
let
his
me finish.
point.
Right? The insult. What happened was the language changed. Once they start enforcing that ban, the language changed so that our MPs over and over again got the threat, I would never rape her. And that was meant as a rape threat.
Yes,
Well,
I agree with.
This is the problem. This interpretation is
Jen.
where the. I completely agree with the sentiment
You
you're
were coming.
but that's the problem. Someone has to determine whether or not that is a threat.
I agree. Yeah. Definitely when Sargon did it, despite all his arguing afterwards, he meant it as a threat.
Yes, very much.
I mean,
so.
not necessarily did he go and rape her, but he meant it as a threat.
Yeah. And to be clear, that's kind of also kind of going back to, like, I mean, if you remember the woman he threatened, this is someone that I know probably myself and Hissy are not a big fan of, is Jess Phillips, but that was absolutely, to me, it was what Sargon did was way over the line of anything.
If I can respond, I have never. It doesn't matter what language the threat is couched in. If it is a threat, it is a threat, and therefore that's not what I'm talking about.
My point is how you determine once there is ambiguity, somebody has to determine. That's what I'm trying to. That's where I was trying to get. It wasn't that I didn't mean to pick on that one particular case, because it's not a fun one. But once you say there is a line, someone has to determine policing that line.
The line is where the words become incitement, or the line is where there is genuine threat involved.
Yeah.
But they change, the language changes.
It doesn't matter whether they change the language. Are they inciting violence against a person, yes or no?
That's the point. Well, would you say they were? Would you say they were if they were saying, I would not do this thing?
That depends entirely on the context of the conversation. You cannot take a specific statement out of context of the conversation it's in.
Also, Amiga Nuts is canceled for wanting to cancel pineapple on pizza. Yeah, and
we should always
Microraptor,
cancel
this is
pineapple on pizza.
See, this is why I probably should have opened with this, okay? The reason I am radically anti-censorship is because of the position I hold in society. Okay? From every angle you look at me, there is an aspect of me that under any regime that was not anti-censorship, I would be in genuine danger.
Yes, but that's because we live in a very privileged society, and the privilege
exactly
smack down on the underprivileged.
The possible worst case scenario, and the possible worst case scenario is that any one aspect of the things I say could fall under scrutiny.
Yeah.
Now, if I expect the freedom to say those things safely, without making threats against anyone, and to state my opinion in a safe environment, I cannot deny anyone else the right to do the same. It's that simple for me.
Then you have to allow threats. I don't see how you cannot.
Threat is an incitement to violence. An incitement to violence is not speech, is not a statement of opinion.
But you've got to know the intent behind it. For example, you could write a story.
I don't have to know the intent behind it.
So whoever's policing it does.
No, because this is the point. You can say what you want. You can sit there now and say, I'm going to come to your door and put a gun to your head. To me, that's not a threat because you don't know where I live. Let's put things into context here.
I agree with you on that. That's not a realistic threat. But people do report that as a threat. They report feeling threatened by that, even though the intent was never there. And that tweet would be taken down, that message would be taken down, that YouTube video would be taken down.
Because that threat, even without the intent of the activity behind it, is a potential incitement to violence of other people who may see it. That's
think
where the
Because
line is.
stochastic terrorism is a thing, unfortunately.
I think it comes down to the fact that you're allowed your own opinions. You're even allowed to voice your own opinions. It's when your opinions turn to the point where they can cause harm to others that there's a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
But how do you determine that in advance when no harm has been done?
That is the tricky one.
Well, this is why I'm saying until harm is actually done, you don't have the right to censor that.
Well, ideally, you want to try and avoid harm being done, which is why you have guidelines.
Listen, if we were saying we want to avoid harm being done, so we're going to remove all threats from everywhere, how many libraries do you think would still carry Mein Kampf?
Look, I completely agree.
Yeah, I agree.
But that book needs to exist.
Yeah.
That book
Right. Fan fiction.
needs
You
to
could write a
exist.
story tomorrow about killing the Prime Minister. Intricate detail explaining how exactly to kill the Prime Minister. How would that could be interpreted as a threat, or it could be interpreted as
How many Bond films have you seen?
very much so.
Yeah.
My
You
point
know,
is you have to allow the threat. Then you have to allow what can be considered a threat always.
Yes, because there's no inherent malice there. It's just a story.
Yes.
It's aimed at adults for adults, and therefore it's just a story, and adults should know better than to act it out. I read fan fiction where people use frigging spit as lubricant. Do you really think normal human beings do that?
Maybe if they've only read fanfic.
They'd have to be some kind of sadist or masochist to do that. But it's not the job of art and content to educate people in that way. Art has its own specific aims and its own specific context. And therefore, if I write a story about killing the Prime Minister and put it on AO3 and say that, whatever character's going to do it, that's not me inciting violence. That's me writing a damn fan fiction. There is a difference.
Can I
and
weigh in on that a second? Because there is a very, very real life example of someone. Now, okay, is someone who has abhorrent political views, but wrote a fiction story called The Turner Diaries.
Yeah.
Which described, a plot which involved blowing up a federal building. Now, one person who was a massive, massive fan of that book and was radicalized by that was Timothy McVeigh, who went on to bomb a federal building, was executed for it. So there's an example of something that was a fiction that someone has then gone and actually acted out in real life.
Okay, but let me just respond to that. Where does the fault lie in that situation?
Yeah.
Because for me, the fault does not lie with the writer. It does not lie with the publisher. It does not lie with anyone but the person who put that bomb in that building.
I agree with that.
And we cannot censor art because of
He interpreted it as a call to violence. He interpreted it as a call to violence.
To be fair, with that book,
I'm not responsible for how other people interpret my content.
I'll say with that book that the author, there's a good argument that he was attempting to call people to violence with the nature of what his, although it was art. Let's just put it this way: the guy who wrote it was a white supremacist himself. Who definitely was wanted to start a race war. So it could be argued that particular work of fiction actually maybe somewhat served its purpose. There's an argument to be had there. I do ultimately think that you are right though, Hissy, that ultimately the person who actually carries out the act in real life is ultimately responsible. But
can I be slightly
now?
Hold on.
Now, hey, I've been quiet for quite a while now. Also, someone has me playing in the background, I think. Oh, the echo's gone. Okay, anyways, as a counterexample, I have a very modest proposal.
Of course you do.
Or rather, Swift had a modest proposal.
Okay.
Okay, I'm
That was a dad joke that none of us got.
Oh no, I got the joke. I'm just waiting for him to elaborate to see whether he actually understands the joke he just made.
So, for those of you who only know Jonathan Swift from his most famous work, Gulliver's Travels, during the I believe it was during the potato famine, Jonathan Swift wrote a satirical essay called "A Modest Proposal," pointing out to the British, the readers, that the British government were being callous and heartless by satirically suggesting that the British should just eat Irish babies.
But that was
basically what atheists say when we're talking about.
That was a very. That is the type of satire that you can trace all the way back to Juvenal.
Yeah.
Now, we have to assume there is a possibility that one lunatic somewhere would have read that, not realised it's satire, and gone and tried to eat an Irish baby. Does that mean the document should be pulled and no one should ever see it? Of course not. That's not how things work. We cannot build a society that coddles those at the absolute fringes. Yeah. What we need to do is build an education system that ensures that people like that are stopped and educated to make sure they don't fall for things like that.
Also, Microraptor is going after the channel punching bag in the chat.
Well, that's one place that cancel culture is needed.
I mean,
oh wow, this lighting makes me look even more grey than I am.
I've got her blocked. I've got her name muted. And I don't engage with discussions about her unless they roll up my timeline because one of the people on my mutual list have said something. Okay? I don't.
Microraptor, do you find my jokes too punishing?
Rig, I will climb out of this screen, fly to America, and book you if you don't behave yourself. Now that's censorship.
Hashtag cancel ring.
Cancel your ring?
Hold on.
But I think if you believe in, okay, let's take a really, easy example we can all agree with. Okay. We've got 3 British people in the chat, an Australian and an American who I know is passingly familiar with British politics. So I'm going to use British politics as an example. We all agree, that Jeremy Corbyn had every right to stand up on the BBC News and give an interview anytime they asked him to, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
If we believe that, we also believe that Boris Johnson has the right to do that.
Yep.
We also believe that, the Lincoln Council has the right to put up a statue of Maggie Thatcher. Now, we also believe that we have the right to tear it down as soon as it goes up, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
Can you tear it down before they finish putting it up?
No, they're going to put it on a 10-foot plinth, so we need an 11-foot ladder. It's on order.
No. Here's the thing. They have the right to put the statue of Margaret Thatcher up. I also, well, not legally, but at least culturally, I also have the right to spray paint it to make her look like the Joker.
Oh, now that's brilliant.
No, but what if we believe that these people whose ideas are largely mainstream are allowed to stand up on the news and say something, and we are willing to defend that right for them to say that. We have to equally be willing to defend the right of people like Farage and Nick Griffin and anyone like that to stand up and say what they think. They don't have the right not to be called out on it. They don't have the right to go on a platform that won't platform them. But if they are asked to give an opinion, they have the right to state that opinion.
And
a principle is only a principle when you are willing to defend it to its absolute extremes.
I'm gonna add something in on this that I was quite active in like anti-fascist groups going back sort of 10 years ago, and one of the main ones who had a policy of no platforming fascists, and it was something I absolutely believed in at the time. It was and I into a lot of ways I saw the benefits of it. However, I do wonder that because it was something that was designed just for these particular people, I always kind of have wondered whether we didn't start something, or we let a genie out of the bottle with that, because then it stopped just applying to fascists. It started applying to there was a big thing, wasn't there? To now I've got to say I do not like Germaine Greer whatsoever, but there was a big thing to try and cancel her about 7 or 8 years ago when she was going to speak somewhere. I mean, I got to say I do not like the woman, but
cancelling people is good from a place perspective.
No.
Right? It is absolutely democratic. Right. The point is the government should have no involvement in this sort of thing, but organisations choosing not to platform someone because of public pressure, that's great. Right. The issue is there should be organisations on the other side that are willing to host these people. The issue we have is we don't have a balance right now of companies that are willing to stand up and say, yes, we will platform them. We're willing to take the hit and lose this business to platform this person.
Yeah.
Right? What we talk about as cancel culture should be very democratic.
But then we also kind of could fall into the problem of cultural censorship, where you have very loud, very vocal minorities working to get things, working to get people canceled who possibly shouldn't be, and working to get even entire genres outright banned. I'm looking at you, evangelicals, and your book burnings.
But this is why we need companies that are willing to stand up to people that are to literally turn around and say, it's this idea the customer is always right seems to have broken us in the last.
The problem is that in a capitalist society, there will never be companies that are willing to do that because they're not willing to take the financial hit.
But then, would the other people need to stand up and say, we will stop spending with you if you don't?
Yeah, but there's two. But then you say,
but people don't believe in their principles. Otherwise,
I want to interject something on that. This is a good example that it isn't necessarily. I mean, there is a big pressure group that certainly in America that Trump's tried to get this thing almost just described as a hate group, and there's certain people within Britain that have done it, even though it's not a hate group in any way, such whatever, and that's the BDS group, the group that is trying to organise boycotts of Israeli goods. It's not a hate. It's not a hate group in any way. It's not anti-Semitic in any way. It has been characterised by that, and as that, and so it has lacked an awful lot of success in a lot of ways. It hasn't had the impact that perhaps they hoped to have had, because it was based on the whole thing of where we were trying to boycott South Africa. It was based very much on that model, which was a successful model.
Yeah, exactly. And no one is saying
certainly people
that boycotting apartheid South Africa was a racist endeavour.
No.
Yeah.
So to say boycotting apartheid Israel is a racist and anti-Semitic endeavour is not factual.
I think the point I was trying to make with it is that on that particular one, and the BDS is a pretty strong movement, companies have been willing to take the hit on that. Because maybe it's not made enough of an impact, although it's certainly not insignificant. But it's been significant enough where people from the other side have felt the need to absolutely character assassinate that group.
Yeah, we'll say. Well, this is the problem, and on Israel, right? For at least my lifetime, so the last 25 odd years or thereabouts.
Yeah.
there has been this habit of we don't talk about racism, we ignore it, it's bad, so we just don't engage with it. And the problem is now, and I think it's coincided with the boom in social media, we now have a generation that doesn't know how to have a discussion with the other side without immediately labeling them fascist, this, that, and the other. Any opinion that's not your opinion is fascist or wrong or leftist or whatever brand you want to put on it. And people have lost the ability to sit down and meet and have a discussion. Now, you don't have to agree when you have a discussion. You don't have to agree to disagree. You can walk away seething and be, ready to go to war the following day. But you have to be able to see and understand each other's points of view, if only so you know what you're fighting against.
Yeah.
Isn't that why we have diplomats there?
I would much rather have, if you put two racists in front of me and one of them is a clean-cut, polite, well-employed, well-liked person who is quietly racist but, keeps it to themselves, or someone who's waving a BNP flag in my face, I will take the one who's waving a BNP flag in my face every day, because at least they're honest about what they are. And at least I know how to fight that because I can see what it is.
I completely agree. I think that's the reason that we end up in the situation we're in now. But right now, no, I don't want to go down that route. Right now, we are ideas are hidden. But they're right. You watch UKIP is the perfect example. Okay, I watched as UKIP progressed over the last 20 years. I've watched their individual candidates on the streets, and they are racist as fuck, constantly. Okay, you watch them on the streets. Now it's kept off the TV. They show Farage, and if anyone actually records the people, if they get caught being that racist, they are the fucking BNP. If anyone gets caught doing that, they get kicked out and chastised, right? But it doesn't change the fact that on TV, the media portrays UKIP as a reasonable party.
Yeah, just slightly right of centre. Like, Ben will tell you, we were walking through London on our honeymoon, and there was a BNP protest going on right outside. Was it the British Museum? Not the British Museum, the Art Museum. The Art Museum on Trafalgar Square.
Yeah.
And I literally looked at this and I said, I don't want to walk through that. And he said to me, why? It just looks like they're protesting something. I said, no, that's the BNP. Yeah. There was not a BNP banner in sight. It was all UKIP. But I said, no, that's the BNP. And I walked up to a female copper and I said, we want to go into the museum. I would appreciate it if you would cross the road with us and walk across there with us. I deliberately picked a female copper to walk up to. And she did it because she took one look at me and she knew if they thought I was looking at them the wrong way, they would go for me.
But how does the Tory party and how does Labour fight UKIP in the media when that's a different UKIP? When the UKIP in the media is a complete...
They can't, because they're fighting a ghost. They're fighting a figment of the media's imagination. That's why it has to all be out in the open.
Well,
and that's why I am radically anti-censorship. I mean, it's out in the open. We can fight it.
This isn't so much a censorship, but this is just a problem with the mainstream political parties and the way that they approach things. Now, when that episode of Question Time happened, when Griffin went on there, all of the rest of the panel were quite rightly pointed out that this guy was a fascist, and absolutely is. However, when they got onto the topic of immigration, each and every one of them, the Labour guy, it was the Tory, I think it was Baroness Wesley, I forget who I remember who the Lib Dem one was because he was my MP, Chris Hume. All of them gave ground to Griffin on this. Not one of them stood round and to say immigration's a good thing for our society. And this, this is the thing, because they are chasing the sort of popular opinion that is in the media or whatever around immigration. Oh, yeah, we've got to listen to people's concerns. None of them were willing to stand, and that's more. And I said that's not a censorship problem. That is a problem with people within mainstream politics who are not willing to actually argue what they might actually believe.
But is that not a problem with the media? Are we not back to it being a problem with the media? The fact that we are platforming, the fact that the BBC is platforming UKIP, but not challenging their real ideas, but challenging the ideas that they want to talk about.
That's pretty
Well,
much
that's the
the
BBC's
way the
problem.
BBC. Yeah, that's pretty much the way the BBC's operating now, though, is it? That's what they do
It
in
is now.
everything. They put up a whole heap of bullshit and only display one side of any argument at a
Yeah,
time.
because the BBC is toothless now.
Yes.
Yep.
BBC
It
is not
seems-
willing to challenge a Tory government.
Listen,
Yeah,
this is not the 70s where the BBC would take people on and tear them down, and Private Eye had a policy of print and be damned. This
Yeah.
is not the 70s now. We're living in an age where all the news media essentially have been defanged, she says, holding a cup with a snake on it. Yes, they've
Yeah.
all been defanged. And this is a
They've
major
all
problem.
been
And it's depressing
gilded.
that the BBC is still the best in the world.
Gilded, sorry, not gilded.
Mm.
Yeah, it seems like, aside from their adaptations on, adaptation series on literature, which are still excellent,
Mm.
Damn,
They-
you
they
said
came-
BBC is
I want a
largely just essentially a propaganda arm of the Tory government.
Mm.
Yeah.
They're scared of the Tories too much. The
problem is that most of the people at the top of the BBC are Tories. That's the problem.
Yes. Well,
and they're spitting right-wing propaganda along with it. So,
I'm
Flatter-
saying,
when they were Labour,
Let-
they were willing to challenge the Labour government, whereas they weren't willing to challenge the Tories as soon as the Tories came in.
yeah, no, this is the problem, right? Okay, Ian Hislop, editor of Private Eye. Do you think that guy votes anything but Tory?
He votes Lib Dem.
yeah.
He behaves like a Tory on screen, though.
Yeah, I
and he
think
goes
he's-
out of his way to trash the Labour Party on screen. When he's on things like "Have I Got News for You?" and he gives that impression. Now he might vote Lib Dem, and all power to him if he does. He's entitled to his vote however he likes. But the BBC is not supposed to be the propaganda wing of the government. It's quote unquote supposed to be unbiased.
Yeah.
So if the BBC is supposed to be unbiased, the BBC is not the platform for him to be going on and trashing Jeremy Corbyn, is it?
Yeah.
No.
Now I'm
Well,
not saying he
It's an
can't do
entertainment
that.
show.
But that's just one example. Now, have
Yeah,
I got
question-
news for you as a satire, so anything goes? But equally within that, it's on the BBC and therefore should satirise all parts equally. It clearly doesn't. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You have to speak to the platform you're on.
Flat earthers think they're being censored when in reality everyone else knows they're idiots and don't think there's any point in seriously engaging with them.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like, why do we trust every election you get in America and in the UK? I've seen this. Celebrities coming out and telling you how they're going to vote. Why do I give a flying fuck how Ozzy Osbourne's going to vote? What's that got to do with me and my issues?
Yeah. Or, yeah.
I remember that from an election a couple of elections back.
Or what? Or why the fuck do I care what the channel punching bag thinks about Scotland?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Or anything for that matter.
Why do we... And the thing is, yes, you've got your right to your opinion, but it's when you start stating your opinion as fact.
Yeah.
All right, we have to go the other way.
Oh.
What about Fox? They have
It has a
literally-
right to exist and to broadcast.
But it's the sort of thing that really needs to be labelled as satire.
Yeah.
Yes?
Fair.
Well,
Fair enough,
I would say anything that's. I mean, we talked about Question Time earlier, right? That is marketed as a political debate show. It's not. It's an entertainment show as much as anything else.
But it
that's
is
put on the
marketed as
BBC.
factual in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Bible
like.
News marketed as entertainment / factual.
Yeah.
And I think as well, I'm going to say it, right? I'm going to take this right to the extreme, and I'm going to pull out the old Mandela quote. Okay?
Yeah.
One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
Mhm.
Now, when we apply that to arenas of speech, okay, arenas of political debate, conversation on social media, anything like that, we have to remember that at every point.
Also,
Okay.
so Microraptor a couple years back This was pre-Brexit. When Scotland was gonna have their referendum on becoming their own country. If I remember right, the channel punching bag tried to leverage her fan base to defeat the measure.
Mm-hmm.
And did.
Yep.
Very effectively. And then Scotland wondered why within 3 hours of the result of the vote coming in, the Tory party were changing their minds on what they'd promised them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily give sole credit for that to her by any stretch of the imagination.
No,
but we have to remember it was 55 to 45%. It was fairly close.
Yeah.
It wasn't as close as Brexit, but
I mean, it was as close as Brexit referendum. But that Scottish referendum was close enough where it's still an ongoing issue. It's something that country could decide again to have this referendum on whether or not they wish to be part of the UK, and it could, they could leave the UK. That issue was not defeated so harshly that it's never going to get brought up again.
And it was brought up within a week of the last vote.
If I remember right, the channel punching bag is not in fact Scottish.
Nope.
Yeah.
Then, in my opinion, she doesn't really have a right to say because it's Scotland's.
She has a right to give an opinion. She does not have a right to tell anyone else what their opinion is.
Yeah.
Everyone has a right.
Yeah. She has. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Ren,
okay. I phrased badly. While she has a right to give her opinion, she doesn't have it. Like it isn't right for her to try and wield what influence she has over being an influential author to try to, make the referendum go one way or the other.
Yeah, but that was what she, at the time, actively on Twitter, she was sending out tweets that essentially read as, vote to stay in, Scotland is better off in the UK.
Yeah.
Now, she could have, I would have been perfectly happy if she'd have sat up and said, I think, personally, Scotland should stay in the UK. She had the right to say that. What she didn't have the right to say was, I think you should vote for Scotland to stay in the UK.
So while she had the right, to give her opinion, actively campaigning for the right, for a decision, for her preferred decision is in my opinion, she was sticking her nose into something that wasn't her business because she wasn't Scottish.
Well, I mean, technically she's English, so she did have some meat in the game.
Yeah.
Because she was on the other side of that.
I know she lived in Scotland, didn't she?
Yeah, she has got a house in Scotland, so she did have some meat in the game. But my point is, it's not whether she's Scottish or not. She could have been South African or freaking Chinese, and she'd have had a right to state an opinion. What she didn't have the right to do was to tell anyone else what their opinion should be.
Yeah, for instance, my personal, in regards to online petitions and such, my personal, this is my personal ethos, whatever. I'm just a random stranger on the internet. But my approach is if it's not something that involves if it involves a government that I'm not under, I will share it out, to get the word out, but I will not add my name to it because that is meddling in the affairs of another government, and America's done enough of that.
I love you, husband, but you're wrong. If people would have taken the opinion you'd have taken, South Africa would still be under apartheid. Because it was international pressure that brought that to an end.
Yeah, I agree with Hissy.
International pressure sometimes is required.
It took a long time, though.
Now, educate yourself on the issues before you sign a petition. By all means, go look up the Wikipedia page, go Google it, do whatever you need to do. But if you genuinely feel like what the petition stands for is something you agree with, if you are eligible to sign that petition, because some petitions are, limited to a certain nation, you should be signing it. You should be willing to put your money where your mouth is and to put your name to something.
Yeah, like
that's where I am.
Like my example is like about a year or so. It was a few months back. There was a petition to the Australian government, for something localized in Australia. Forget exactly what it is. I shared it out, but I didn't sign it. Because
you are talking about the petition to lower the mediaship ownership of one Rupert Murdoch.
See, I would have signed that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, over 1 million Australians did. So it's going to be heard in Parliament. Couldn't happen to a nicer bloke, really. I mean, some people might say that's censorship, but he's not losing his voice. They doesn't want to reduce his voice.
Yeah.
When he is the only voice in the room, you have to let other ones in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And definitely in some states, like, is the only voice. So it has to be dealt with.
So you're not deplatforming Murdoch. Murdoch will still have his platform, but
he just won't have a monopoly.
Yeah, he won't have a monopoly.
Yeah, I mean, Rupert Murdoch is part of the problem in this world, anyway.
Yeah.
But listen, this world's got 99 problems, and Rupert Murdoch is at least about 47 of them.
I agree. I totally agree. The man has too much power.
Also,
and we can't vote him out. So you've got to do something about that level of
Sam,
power.
I'm going to start a petition that if Scotland leave the UK, they take everything north of Sheffield with it.
Just because you want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask for asylum.
Yeah. Get your
Do you
plaid.
have any problems getting in an asylum, Jeff?
Yeah.
So here's a question: will I have to learn how to play the bagpipes?
No, but you may have to learn how to speak Yorkshire.
Sorry, that could be. See, the bagpipes, that could be argued as a legitimate, worthwhile form of censorship.
Yeah.
No,
there are only about 3 tracks in the bagpipes that are any good.
I
I'm
am
going to tell Cops you
joking.
said that.
I am actually joking. I like bagpipe music.
Yeah.
So.
In my opinion,
a little bit. Did anyone see the woman who plays jazz on her bagpipes? Okay, I will have to find it and retweet it for you guys to all see, because she's absolutely amazing, and I want it. I want to interview her and talk about jazz.
I will point out as well, just because we're talking about Scotland, there has been for many years a small fringe group that has been calling for the Republic of Yorkshire.
Oh,
there was a small.
Can the rest of the UK vote on that?
And Sam, my opinion is very much the same. Bagpipes are like the violin. Bagpipes are like the violin. Well played, they're fantastic. Poorly played, you'll wish you don't have ears.
You should hear me play the violin. 2 years of the violin taught me everything.
I want to hear you play violin.
You don't. You really don't.
2 years of violin, I don't think I'd be able to hold it properly.
I'm actually really tempted to do a video where I play keyboards and trombone and put down a jazz track.
Do it!
Because I think it'd be kind of cool. Actually, what I should do is do that and write a song for it and get somebody to sing it. Not me.
I think there's a
Can you sing Jazz Ring?
I know I can sing gospel-ish.
You can do gospel?
Yeah. To be honest, there's some weird ones around the UK here. There's the Mercy and Nationalist Party. Yeah.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, the Republic of Yorkshire group do have racist elements in there. They're not just talking. part of the reason they want a Republic of Yorkshire is to close the borders, which I don't agree with. But on principle that London doesn't give a fuck about anything north of Watford Gap, I would absolutely support a independent Yorkshire or a devolved
And
Yorkshire.
there was a party in the 60s and 70s. It sort of died out, I think, in the 80s. The Vectis National Party. This was a party that was campaigning for the independence of the Isle of Wight.
The Cornwall has got a movement for devolution.
Yeah,
that seems to be the one that got most credibility at the moment.
Anyway, sorry, I think we got off of censorship and we got into self-determination.
We're well off the beaten track.
Yeah,
Self-determination is a good sidetrack, though.
Yeah, these are the discussions we are safe to have in a world where censorship is not.
Yeah,
where we are anti-censorship. We could not be having discussions like this in a country where censorship was enforced.
Yeah.
Oh no, definitely.
And we had gone so far down the rabbit trail, things just kept getting curiouser and curiouser.
Well,
could you go the other way?
What I have just said, saying that I would support a Republic of Yorkshire, is to all intents and purposes treason.
Yeah.
I am free to say that in the UK because I am not calling violence. Let's do it by referendum. Let's do it by vote.
Yeah.
So I am free to say what I like to say. Also, I'm free to say it because I hold no power and therefore.
If you made a call to arms, though, then you would be crossing.
I would make a call to a political movement. I would not make a call to arms. And that would be where the line is.
Yeah.
Because I do not, we have a right to self-determination. We do not have a right to start a war. We do not have a right to put lives on the line.
We have a right to protest as well.
Yeah. And that's
we don't have a right to turn those protests into acts of violence, though. That's where that line is crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where my line is on anything. My line is if you're not actively harming someone, it's and I do include hate speech in that to an extent. Where if you're saying something and we can actively prove that something you said in isolation has caused physical harm to someone, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
How do we justify
I would argue
to continue to exist in a public forum?
I would argue that Hesse, you and I do a little bit of self-censorship on what we do.
Yeah,
technically. We exercise. I mean, we exercise like with those asterisk things. We try to avoid showing some of those images that we think are going to upset people. Or, I mean, okay, then we do have to also take into account the whole YouTube having a problem with it because we are on their platform.
But we do your self-censorship in good taste, not because in what's in good taste, not in.
That is something.
So
I mean, that's
not as offensive as the original.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the decision that Hesse and I have taken them up between ourselves.
Yeah.
Although, granted, one of those was actually forced upon you.
Well, we don't know. We to this day, I've got to say, we don't know why that stream was shut down, Jem. We don't know.
Yeah.
We genuinely don't.
We've never got a reason on that.
Email about it.
No. All it said is breach terms and conditions, and then it put it back up 2 days later, and that was it.
And
but we do that. That is our active choice to do that. We're not doing that because someone has told us you have to hide this.
Yeah.
We're doing that because we appreciate that it would be in poor taste not to. Therefore, I think there's a difference between good taste and censorship.
I was going to say it's contextualizing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're censoring to contextualize so you can enjoy the story and the positives without diminishing it completely with the negatives.
Yeah.
You're basically applying the Uncle Ben principle to your platform.
Exactly. I choose not to show racist imagery on my platform if it can all be helped. Okay, I choose not to do that. Now, if I was going to sit here and say make an edited video about racist imagery, I would probably show that imagery on my platform. But before I started, there would be a warning there. This video will contain images of, racist depictions of X or whatever. It with a means to criticizing it, which is fair. And that's what we are doing. We are not censoring ourselves. By not showing that, we are implicitly criticizing the racism inherent in those images. That's what we're doing. We're not technically censoring it because anyone can go find it. We're not telling people don't look at it. What we're telling people is we don't want to show it. And that's the difference. We are choosing to deplatform it, which we have every right to do.
Yeah. Or...
Jen.
I made sure I did not say that out loud.
Damn it, Jen.
That was inappropriate, Jen. That was inappropriate, Jen.
Yeah.
Why do you think it wasn't said?
Yes, Marmite should be deplatformed everywhere. Smashed, destroyed, without a doubt. It should never be talked about again.
Hashtag cancel Dave.
As I told you, Dave, you were using it wrong. It's not meant to go on your penis.
But, or like how during the Orlando stream, though there was a slip up, we didn't use the G slur for travelers.
Yeah. Because that word is no longer appropriate, and we made that decision. We weren't censoring ourselves. We were criticizing the use of it, but we contextualized the use of it as it was appropriate then, it's not appropriate now.
Yes.
And the thing is, that I don't call that censorship. I call that fair criticism.
Yeah.
If I sit and do a video about... again, I'm going to use the same example. If I sit and do a video about Mein Kampf, I'm going to be talking about seriously triggering issues.
Yeah.
I am going to be saying there are certain things in this book that you do not want to expose people to.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. That's fair criticism. People have still got the right to go read that book if they want and find out what I'm talking about. And it is just a case of sometimes people blur the line between criticism and censorship.
Yeah.
Microraptor the G-slur is a word for traveller communities. Romani. And then if you complete the phrase, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it is considered a slur by those communities now. And they have actively campaigned to ask people to stop using that word. In the same way, Inuits in one of the Arctic circles, I forget which one because I'm not a geologist or geographer, said, please don't use a particular word for us because it's racist. It's not a word we apply to ourselves.
Some of them object to Inuit.
Some of them object. Well, I didn't know that. I apologise.
That's okay. I didn't know.
Indigenous peoples of those regions.
Yeah.
It's one of the, Some are very identified with the label Eskimo.
Some of them do. Some of them don't.
Very much
in the same way, I strongly identify with the term mulatto, which is a racist term for someone who is of mixed heritage. I identify with that term because I have personally reclaimed it. I would not dream of calling anyone else that. That is a term I identify with.
Yeah.
In the same way, in African American vernacular, they use the N word with a soft A. I don't like that word, and I don't care how you pronounce it. Don't use it on me. But feel free to use it yourself. In the same way, I wouldn't use a word I applied to myself on you. I expect the same courtesy, and that's just common courtesy. That's not censorship.
Yeah.
If you slip up as part of your vernacular, fair enough. But there's a difference between slipping up and actively, maliciously using it.
Very much.
It's a malicious use that makes a word a slur. It's not the word itself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Exactly.
That's something a lot of people don't get. I mean, a lot of a lot of trans people who use the word TERF actually do use it as a slur.
Yeah.
If you're using it to refer to those people, then it's not a slur because it's what they are, and they coined it themselves. So it's not a slur. But if you're using it to belittle them, if you're using the word as an attack word itself, then you're using it as a slur. Yeah.
If your response is, "Oh, shut up, TERF," and that's the end of it, sorry, you're using that as a slur. You're using that to shut down an active discussion.
Yeah, well, you're not using TERF then as a slur.
Well, you're not, no, but
no, you're not.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you're actively trying to shut down.
If you say if you fucking TERFy bastards or something like that, or even though it's the fucking and the bastards around it, or bitches, or however you want to say it, creates a context that makes the TERF a slur.
Is there such a thing as a TERF slur?
Yeah, there'll be lots of TERF slurs.
Can I say that 5 times fast? TERF slur.
TERF slur, TERF slur, TERF slur. No, can't. Your turn.
Yeah.
No.
Or and or as I, as I said in the horror stream, basically the only time I will discourage anyone from participating in a piece of media is if it will cause them mental harm. It's good to it's good to participate in media when you can't. It's good to participate in a variety of media. However, if things about that media, like for instance, certain aspects of horror, will trigger say an anxiety attack, then you should not participate in that form of media.
I disagree.
You should prioritize your self-care.
You should prioritize your self-care, but I do believe certain media is designed to invoke anxiety, stress, upset, and there's a reason for that, and it's not because it's malicious, it's because it's an educational tool.
Yeah,
so for example, last week I watched a film called Shooting Dogs about the Rwanda genocide. Yeah. And I sobbed like a baby. I cried and I wept and I was anxious as all hell watching that. But I watched it because it has a value and a purpose.
Yeah, but if, say, you're heavily colorophobic, you should not watch it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No one's putting a gun to your head and sitting you down and making you watch Schindler's List.
Yeah.
And we would appreciate if you watched it because it has historical value and educational value.
Yes.
But do that in your own time when you are mentally secure enough to deal with that.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't do it when you're 10 minutes away from a complete nervous breakdown.
There are lots of movies like that. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. 12 Years a Slave. 12 Years a Slave I couldn't even get through.
Even the TV show Roots, the uncut version, is horrendous. It's harrowing.
It's horrific.
Or like I said in the horror stream, I will never read, or I will never watch the movie adaptation of Misery, and I will never read it again because that will trigger me.
Yeah, no, like I read The Shining way too young. I read it at like 11 years old, and it traumatized me, and I refused to watch the film because I'm just like, no, if the book was that bad, I'm not going anywhere near the film.
Yeah.
So here's a question. Given the way that Kent Hovind says water, how do you think he says horror?
Ring?
Well, see, you shouldn't watch horror movies because they are inherently demonic.
There you go. Whatever he said.
Whatever he said, yeah. What he said.
Literally. But, and this is the whole thing. We're having all these tangential discussions about it. And the entire point is this stream could not happen if we lived in a properly censored society.
Yeah.
and we have to be free to have these discussions.
You mean an overly censored society? I don't know if you can say a properly censored
not properly,
society.
but overly censored. Yeah, my apologies, wrong word there. Dyslexia brain.
I mean,
I
mean, obviously, like this platform doesn't exist in some countries. You know, like this platform that we're using right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I've got friends who who are in countries around the world and have to use VPNs to get onto Facebook and Twitter. Like, what's that about?
Although, having said that, I've done that too, and I live in a fairly free country. But I did it to get hold of Netflix before you could have Netflix in Australia.
Region locking because capitalism.
Yes,
exactly. It shits me.
I did
say early on in this stream that there was no way we were gonna reach all of us actually agree with everyone on this particular topic because people have their own
Sam, I tweeted about this. My opinion is I don't care whether you play the long version, the short version, the censored or the uncensored version. Just shut the fuck up and do what you're going to do. And stop telling everyone else to do what they're going to do.
Yes.
Jesus, it's a song of its time. Get over yourselves.
You should have given Sam a link. This would have been a great discussion between Hissy and Sam.
Yeah. I love the debate. I just love how the Pogues jumped in on the actual debate though. Yeah. And some guy defending, yelling out the slurs in it. And they responded with something, I think the wording was, what was it? Shut up, you heron vogue little shit, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it was
and I learned a new word when I saw that, because I'd never heard the word heron vogue before, but I like
it. At least personally, and technically, since this is my channel, this is the de facto philosophy of the platform, of this particular platform, is it's best to engage in as many forms of media as you can, right? And engage with as many forms of media as you can. However, you must do so critically and prioritize prioritize self-care.
Yeah.
I have no argument with that. I think that's an excellent, very good statement. It's a great, I have no argument with that whatsoever.
Good to live by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always prioritize self-care, not just in your media consumption. In everything, prioritize your self-care.
Yeah.
Now,
unless of course you're giving up some of your self-care to try and save somebody else's life, that would be my only exception to that.
Yeah, but equally, it's your decision to do that.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And I think the point is, don't allow anyone else to make your mind up for you.
No. Yeah. And that's part of thinking critically and being self-informed.
Yeah.
Self-informed? That doesn't sound right. Just being informed. So the self bit wasn't needed.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair,
Mr. Falcon.
Well, to be fair, you do need to be self-informed as well. You do need to know what's going on there.
Yeah.
But that's a completely different discussion. That's a discussion for one of your naked streams, Jen.
Yeah.
It is. Being self-informed.
See, I'm not censoring you. We're just categorizing.
I'm amazed YouTube hasn't censored me, to be perfectly honest. 26,000 views now.
Wow.
26,000?
Yeah.
That's how you get monetized, folks. Show you.
It's not though, because it hasn't turned into
subs.
New subs. It did initially, but it didn't afterwards. Because a lot of them are same people going back and rewatching.
What's the view time on it?
Not good. Most people finish watching it after the first minute and a half, which is that whole bit.
Now,
that's usually about when they're done needing to watch it.
Yeah.
Everyone go to their analytics now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After that, it starts being sexually explicit.
Yeah.
For want of a better term. I have
People
got
don't know
something
that
out of it,
Pornhub
though.
exists.
And I've had lots of comments from people who come back and watch other videos. And I've had a few people actually private message me and say, you need to make more of these videos. Who aren't even subbed to me, who obviously just have bookmarked my page but haven't subbed. So
Maybe they like your shoulders.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not here to kink shame
I
anyone.
like my shoulders too.
Yeah.
You're only seeing them now because technically I'm in my pajamas.
So I got about. Did you say 20? I got 26.3 thousand views on mine. 2.2k hours in total. So nowhere near monetization.
And-
You did a masturbation video as well.
I'm talking about one video.
I could do one.
Uh,
You've got one video. You got one video, which has got about as much as my entire channel's history.
Yeah, you want my analytics, don't you? You want to know how much view hours I've got out of all of that. How do I change that?
So, before we get back onto topic,
Sorry.
no, that's all right. While we're on
32,000 view hours all up.
So apparently, to beat the popularity of the stream about the to beat the popularity of the stream about the channel punching bag, we had to literally summon the devil.
yeah.
Yeah,
Is
because
the channel punching bag stream the most popular one you've had of these?
well, it was the reigning champion for like months.
Yeah.
But it just got beaten out by the Dr. Faustus stream.
Oh wow! Well, I'm glad I got.
So,
beaten
like I
out.
said, it takes summoning the devil to beat the.
I'm amazed War of the Worlds didn't beat it,
Yeah.
being what it was. So yeah.
Okay, this is a thing as well. Though. If you put your words out there and you don't get an audience, that's not censorship either. And I think there's certain pundits and people who have discussions who like to claim that it is, and it's
But my
not.
opinion is as good as everyone else's. It's better. Everyone should want to hear it.
Yes, but they have the choice whether they want to hear it or not, and you have to accept that.
Yeah, specifically, it was summoning Mephistopheles.
Right, whatever you do, don't say his name again, or he might appear in a mirror behind someone. Oh wait,
Yeah,
no, that's Beetlejuice.
No, you have to say it 3 times. He's only said it once.
Yeah. But anyways, yes, we did.
When you say Beetlejuice.
That's what happens if you name a certain pre-sup apologist who likes to come in. You say his name 3 times, he appears in your live chat.
Darth.
Darth
died today.
Wrong Darth.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, wrong
Bad
Darth.
news.
Yeah, bad news.
Yes, bad news about that Darth. But it's a shame. Definitely the wrong Darth died.
See, yeah, okay. Because we're talking about censorship, because what you've essentially done there is come very close to where the line is, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That was really close to the line. I know.
I almost.
But it was humor. It was
humor, and therefore it's acceptable because we know there's no actual threat involved.
No, there was no threat.
Very clear.
I didn't threaten. I just said it was unfortunate.
I almost kicked you from the stream for a split second to just punch in the joke.
Highlight it. Yeah.
You could have. I wouldn't have objected. It would have been funny too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I think the problem, my main problem with cancel culture, with censorship and everything, but particularly with cancel culture on the internet as it currently stands. Dave was right early on when you said there's no space for redemption allowed. There's no space for growth.
Yeah.
And the problem is, as human beings, we are not static. We do grow. And if someone tweets out something inappropriate and gets 10,000 responses and changes their mind, they have the right to grow from that and for that to be taken, as they are trying to grow and trying to learn and they are doing the work. Now, if they don't do the work, that's a different kettle of fish. But if they are doing the work, why is it then dragged up in every interview, conversation, tweet thread, anything else for the next X number of years?
Yeah.
Why are people not allowed to make mistakes anymore? That bothers me a lot.
Besides that, if you don't allow differing opinions, we just end up as 1984. As in,
I can't
as in
believe
the movie.
it's taken an hour and a half
As
for someone to mention 1984 on this stream.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah, the channel punching bag got way more.
How did you guys not mention 1984 earlier?
No sense.
Because we actually understand 1984.
Yeah.
And that's not the discussion we're having. Because
I realise that.
the discussion we're having is not government censorship.
No, but I mean, if you end up in a society that wants to stop alternative conversation, so you end up through the society itself getting to a point where you're stifling differences of opinion. You end up at 1984 anyway, even without the government intervention.
The difference is, in a situation where government intervention is not there and is not enforcing it, the freedom is still there to rebel.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the point is that we're also in a situation where people are asking governments to enforce.
That's a problem.
And so then you are bordering on 1984.
See, I go back to in that context to how we can allow the Bible to continue to exist in our society as anything other than academic study, because it does incite violence towards groups of people.
It does.
Yeah,
Lots
they've
of
got
groups of
entire
people,
passages
actually.
telling people how hard they're allowed to beat their slaves, for God's sake.
Yeah.
It's not a book that. I mean,
But
all power to you if you're religious, but you should be reading your religious text critically.
Yeah.
It's when people fail to do that the problem exists.
Kaz makes a good point here. But you can hear her. She says we could just reclassify it as fiction, then it'd probably be okay.
Religious texts are like any other form of media and must be engaged with critically when you engage with them.
Hey, listen. Metamorphosis. Okay, Ovid's Metamorphosis is classified as fiction. Now, if you can classify one of my religious texts as fiction, I can classify one of yours as fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when I read my religious text, I don't genuinely believe in shape-shifting deities with too much brains downstairs and not enough upstairs. What I believe in is the messages behind it.
Yeah.
Now, I read that critically. Now, if you're going to present something as a factual text, you should present it as fact. You should present fact.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, you should make a genuine effort to be presenting fact. Because we all make mistakes. Information develops. The average age of a fact is only something like 8.5 years or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was one of them, and also in the culture I grew up with, they will actively they will actively culturally censor their society from anything that criticizes that book. Cough, Good Omens.
Yeah, and I will say as well, I was raised Catholic, and again, the cultural censorship is there.
I agree. I agree with their campaign. Netflix should have cancelled that show.
Yeah.
Netflix. I think the funny thing is Netflix actually said we will not air any more episodes of Good Omens. I thought that was hilarious.
Well,
didn't they say we would air it that,
Cancel it
provided
if-
Amazon wouldn't air any more episodes of something else that they air?
No,
Yeah.
Amazon
Yeah.
said we'll cancel Lucifer if you cancel Good Omens or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Something
Yeah,
like that, wasn't it?
yeah, it was the other way.
But
It was this.
That was
Brilliant.
funny.
I don't know. I just think the world would be a much poorer place if everyone just only said the prevailing opinion of the day.
Yeah.
But I you know, you can sit up in front of me, and if you are a fascist, if you are a neo-fascist, and you believe that I, you know, should be dragged outside and shot, say it. You have the right to tell me that. You have the right to say that.
Do we have to be a
I
fascist?
have the right to stick two fingers up at you and tell you to go fuck yourself as well. That's how freedom of speech works. Damn it, Microraptor.
Well, I mean, you know, The Life of Brian was the movie Too Funny for Denmark.
It was also the movie Too Funny for the Catholic Church.
I thought it was Norway where they banned it.
Oh yeah,
I think
it was
Norway.
either. I keep
Yeah.
getting that story backwarard.
Mm.
It's a very funny episode of QI about different.
But it's funny you say that because they had because I mean it's a good example of like a pressure group that advocated for an awful lot of censorship. We had a group called the National Viewers and Listeners Association, fronted by one Mary Whitehouse, and certainly the Life of Brian was certainly targeted, but a few years before that they actually won a private prosecution for something called blasphemous libel over a publication called Gay News, who published a poem called "The Love That Dares to Speak Its Name" by James Kirkup. And
And that is still a euphemism for it, the love that dares to speak its name.
is somewhat fan fiction based on the Bible, if anything, that poem, but
yeah. See, this is one thing. I don't care what religion you are, okay?
Yeah.
This is one thing. Blasphemy laws I will never defend. If your religion cannot stand up to being satirized, scrutinized, and criticized, then it ain't much of a religion.
So if your God
If your
needs
belief
a man
is
to
that
defend it,
poor,
it's not a God.
yeah, if you believe it, you should be ready to defend it.
Yeah.
And of course, talking about bringing up pressure groups, about how one doctor with one little book managed to leverage enough pressure to stunt an entire artistic medium for decades.
You want to talk about doctors and their documents stunting progress? Let's talk about Andrew Wakefield.
Oh,
yes, but
Now that I believe
is he
never
technically?
Okay, wait there.
hold
was published
I got a quick
and
one.
peer reviewed, but the problem is that the peer reviews that debunked it didn't get the same publicity as the original document.
Right. The government,
Hold
our
on.
government is currently talking about censoring social media companies for the distribution of anti-vax material. Where do we stand?
I think anti-vax is something that is actively harmful.
Yeah, I agree. But should the government be censoring it?
This is where I think that this is a point where I actually do kind of think that there is some sort of responsibility there to.
So because you agree with it, you think it's justified?
But anti-vax is
No, you're putting words in my mouth there.
I am.
You are very much putting words
Surely
in
you
my
could
mouth.
do something
Dave.
similar to what they Twitter does with Trump.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Call it out, yeah.
No, it's taken as persecution. That his supporters, it emboldens them.
If you think fact checking is persecution, you need to check your facts.
Yes, but you can't say. I completely agree with you, but that doesn't change what the base thinks. It doesn't change that it's making that his community stronger. They believe.
Some people think the Earth is flat. It don't make it true.
To borrow a phrase from a certain internet personality with a woefully unsatisfied wife, facts don't care about your feelings.
Oh. Wait a second. Okay. Yeah, Microraptor's just made a very good point in the chat. There's a difference between making it illegal to say it and showing why it's wrong.
Yeah.
Showing why it's wrong is not an option. Social media companies can't do that.
They can do it with Trump. They can do it with everyone else.
No, they can't. All they can do is put a message. If all you're talking about is the same thing as Trump, like I said, it emboldens that community.
Yes, but it educates those on the edges of that community so they don't get drawn into it. And it becomes a war of attrition.
Not there to show that.
Yeah.
I'm not.
But just a little asterisk that says 200 years of medical science shows that this is not the
200
case.
years of medical science. How is it Twitter words it? They say official sources have called this differently.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, whilst you might not change the diehards' opinions because of doing that, because you won't, because the people
You'll at least get other people thinking about it.
Yeah, and you'll discourage more people getting dragged in by the stupid, which is what you want to do.
You are building on the conspiracy that they are hiding something. It's that nature.
Yeah, but I'm not responsible for other people's tinfoil hats.
But isn't it worse if you just completely censor them? I mean, if you censor anything, effectively it goes underground.
Okay,
and
so
an underground movement is perhaps worse because you can't challenge it.
While I don't necessarily support conspiracy theories, but maybe we need another conspiracy theory that states conspiracy theories were started by tinfoil companies to sell more tinfoil.
To sell hats.
Right. Okay. Here's a real piece of damage that's being done by the anti-vax movement. Okay.
Yeah.
At the moment, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and there is a group in Oxford who are working towards a vaccine. Now, the sheer volume of misinformation around that vaccine in the last month and what they're trying to do with it, whether it's efficient, whether it's not, whether it's a viable vaccine or anything else, has only fed into anti-vax propaganda. But the only reason people are looking at it that closely is because they've been exposed to anti-vax propaganda. Yeah. Now, the problem with anti-vax is when you spread that information, you are actively risking killing people.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Yes. You are doing real harm. And I've been saying this for the last nearly 2 hours. When you are doing real harm, that is my line. So as far as I'm concerned, anti-vax, every anti-vax statement, wherever it is, anywhere in the world, should be plastered with a massive disclaimer of this is false, these are the facts.
Yep.
You're still allowed to say it, but I genuinely think there's a conspiracy to silence you. There is a conspiracy to silence you because you're a liar and you're dangerous. And there should be a conspiracy to silence you when you're anti-vax. That's where I stand.
I think their messages should be deleted.
I don't think they should be deleted. Because again,
I don't know the liar is exactly the right word. Some of them definitely are liars, but some of these people actually actively believe it. If you actively believe a lie and repeat it, are you actually lying?
You are spreading misinformation.
Yes, I'll agree with that. Spreading misinformation
is irrelevant.
How is that different?
It's not.
It's not. But
that's why, again, like we said, fiction. Put religious texts in the fiction section. Put anti-vax in the fiction section.
So the religious tweets on Twitter all say underneath that this stuff is not true?
They should at least say that there are alternate viewpoints.
We could. Maybe they should put that on everyone's Twitter.
If everyone had it on their Twitter, it wouldn't mean anything.
Exactly.
Well, this is the point. People take Twitter as point of fact when it's opinion.
Yeah.
And this is the problem.
Well-
People set too much stock in other people's opinions.
Well, Jen,
And
I
not
mean,
enough in cold hard facts.
if you remember, Jen, I had an anti-vaxxer come into my live chat yesterday whilst we were on air.
Of course, I remember.
And do you realize what I caught him doing?
Yeah, he went all anti-Semitic.
No, but before that, he's on about the ingredient in some vaccines. I sort of roughly was aware of it, but I just went on to sort of Google at the same time, and then he posted this thing in the chat, and I was just like, dude, you've just copied and pasted that from Wikipedia, haven't you? You haven't done any research, like, you know, because I was happening to look at the Wikipedia page. Yeah,
this guy came on to Sprout Flurf stuff, and we said, don't care that you believe in a flat Earth as long as you're not trying to preach it to us. We don't care. As long as you're not actively hurting anybody or trying to rip people off, I don't care. You can believe the Earth is a sock for all I care.
As long as you're not selling anything and you're not spreading that as truth.
That's true. Yep, I don't care. So then, to try and trigger us as a paddle, he went on to anti-vaccine. And then
this is the thing, though. There's always three sides to every story. There's yours, there's mine, and to quote Bon Jovi, there's the cold hard truth.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. People take your opinion or my opinion instead of the truth. And the way we combat that is through education and critical thinking development in the population.
And of course,
if we have an educated population, we don't need censorship. Because the population will apply critical thinking.
And of course, the truth is that the Earth is a flat disc carried by 5 elephants, all on the back of a giant turtle.
That's your opinion.
That's the cold hard truth.
It's an opinion. Prove it.
It's about time we did Terry Pratchett on a show.
Yeah. That's an opinion. Well, technically we already did. Good Omens.
Oh yeah, well yeah, I suppose we did.
Like Sam's asking how we combat it, and he's talking about social programs or just socialism. I don't think. I genuinely believe combating misinformation should be a cross-party issue. It shouldn't be something that politically causes division. Now, that's in an ideal world. I appreciate that. I do appreciate that, and I do appreciate
what the truth is.
The truth is what we can prove.
That's again, you have something now like trickle-down economics has been categorically shown to not have the results it says. It is still accepted by the majority of the conservative capitalist world.
Well, then, whenever they spread information regarding trickle-down economics and claim that it works in a way it doesn't, they should be presented with the facts to disprove them.
At that point, you are insisting on being platformed alongside them everywhere.
What I'm saying is, if you will platform one opinion, you must be willing to platform its opposite.
No, I mean, trickle down. Okay, hear me out. Trickle down economics works in the way it's supposed to work. In that it's the rich piss and it trickles down on the poor.
Yeah. So if a conservative says trickle down economics works, we have to understand what they mean by it works. We have to.
They mean when they're saying it works to the public, they're talking about the models that were predicted as to how it would help the poor. I don't believe they think it works like that. At least I hope
no, of course they don't. Otherwise, they wouldn't be. They wouldn't be supporting it because it doesn't support them.
Sam, you've never run into the private school movement.
Sam lives in the UK. Sam is well aware of private schools. And academies.
Yes.
But not in the same way as Ring. Did you go to what did you do?
I went to a base school.
Yeah, I went to a private Christian school from 2nd to 8th grade, or 2nd through 8th grade.
It's lucky you're able to think at all.
Yes, he could be a gibbering mess.
No, seriously. The curriculum the school used literally taught that humans were a separate kingdom, a separate taxonomic kingdom.
Oh no wonder Hoven's so messed up.
Yeah.
Behold, a man. Sorry, I had to.
Yeah.
It has feathers, but point made. I don't keep a lot of de-feathered birds around for some reason.
But yeah, based on if you want to know my opinions on private schools, especially private religious schools, I do have a video on the Montana Department of Revenue versus Ripes. What was her name? But the recent Supreme Court case about whether or not private Christian schools were eligible to receive special state or to receive state vouchers.
Right. I went to a selective Catholic school from the age of 3. I went to selective Catholic schools from the age of 3 to the age of 18.
Yeah.
Which meant they weren't exclusively Catholic. They prioritized the intake of Catholic students. And they taught a Catholic curriculum.
See, I see. Here's my opinion on it, because
I am not of the opinion that those schools are a good thing.
Here is my opinion on this, because I noticed something in the UK when we started talking about quote unquote faith schools about 10, 15 years ago for the first time. Funny enough, it never seemed to be an issue until there were faith schools
that were
for Muslims, and it became it suddenly became an issue, and it was all over. Like, all we got to do stuff about. Now here's my thing. I personally would sooner see all education secular. I think it should be secular.
Yeah.
I don't want the C of E in schools. I don't want the Catholic Church in schools. I don't want Muslim faith schools. I don't want
Jewish faith
schools
in 2 generations.
Yeah, I don't want any of it. I don't want any of it in bloody schools. However, I do think if you are going to allow it for the Church of England and the Catholic Church, and
you have to allow it for all religions.
you are going to have to allow it for Muslims and Hindus and Jewish people as well. So that to me it is a kind of, it's got to be all one way or all the other. Now, personally, I would sooner it be all the other way to what it is now and get all of it. I don't want the C of E involved with schools anymore.
Now, I do have my own viewpoint on this, but this would very much be worth its own topic.
Yeah.
I will say one thing, though. There is a case study in England, or a case that occurred very recently, of a openly LGBT man going into a secular school as headmaster. Now, because of where the school was based, the majority of students were Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
And the parents began to protest the headmaster's curriculum.
I remember that.
How is that relevant?
Because it was what I'm trying to get at is they had no right to do that. It was a secular school. If you want your child to go to a religious school, send them to a religious school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we are coming up on the second hour, so I think we should go to closing,
Mm-hmm.
Closing thoughts.
Yeah, closing thoughts.
Hashtag cancel Dave.
Didn't we talk about that before?
Yeah.
On Chris's stream.
Something like that.
Something like that.
In all seriousness, I mean, I think this has been a useful conversation. I think it's different somewhat from what was normally done on this channel or on this show. I think it's definitely always it's a useful conversation to have, and unfortunately, it's going to be a conversation I think we're going to have to keep having. Because these are issues that are not going away, and I as I said earlier on, there's no way we were ever going to reach a kind of consensus on censorship and cancel culture or call out culture. There was no way we were ever going to reach a consensus about this, but I think it's been a useful conversation to have. So,
yeah. Hissy?
I have two things I'd like to say. First of all, I can't pronounce the poor bloke's name, so I'm probably going to mangle it. So any German speakers, please don't murder me. Nermala had a point. I think that's how it's pronounced, Nermala. There's a famous poem. You've all heard it. I know you have. They came for the socialists, and I did not speak out.
Yeah.
The thing is, when we censor the fascists, and then we censor the sexually deviant, and then we censor the people who have racial opinions that are different to ours, and then eventually we're going to run out of people to censor. And that is going to become a smaller and smaller circle. That's my first point. My second point is, I do not have to like anyone else's output. I do not have to agree with you. I do not have to like any content you create. I do not have to engage with it if I choose not to. No one's putting a gun to my head and making me walk through the Tate Gallery. Okay? Yeah. It's still there.
If they were, though, then it's a problem.
That's where the problem begins, yeah. And I do not have to like that you created it. I do not have to like that you said it. What I have to do and what I have a duty to do, as you have a duty to do also, is accept that it exists and not attempt to destroy it because it personally icks me out. Because we have to learn as a society that our instinctive, that's gross reaction is not a moral judgment. And I think for a moral judgment, we don't have the right to cast moral aspersions on other people. Morals are very fluid within eras of society. What was acceptable 100 years ago is not acceptable now, will not be acceptable in 50 years' time. We have to move with the times, but also we have a duty to not destroy the past. Because once we destroy the past, and I'm a historian, so I'm going to say it, once people don't know the past, the curse of the historian is to watch other people repeat history they didn't bother studying.
Yep.
And that's another reason I'm very anti-censorship, because I believe the minute we stop educating people and stop teaching people how to actually combat these arguments, that's when the danger is of them getting their claws back in. I am going to reshare the link to that essay I wrote. So if you are interested, have a read. It was a very fandom specific thing, but it is, it's my opinion and it's a lot more thought out than I said here.
Yeah. And Dave?
I think in terms of censorship, I think that we are stuck in this idea of free speech that is idealistic and wrong. I think there is a reasonable expectation that you can say anything, but not anyway. And I think that needs to be built upon like that. In terms of cancel culture, I think it should be a good thing. I think it probably isn't.
Fair.
That's it. It's me. Simple.
And Jen?
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to an individual responsibility here. I think we have a responsibility to stand up against bad ideas, but that doesn't mean censoring those bad ideas. It means standing up and proving that those bad ideas are bad ideas.
Yeah.
And we can only do that. We can only educate society and have society be better in the long run if those bad ideas filter to the top. So if you're constantly censoring people, those bad ideas go underground, they swelter, and then you end up with stupid movements like Nazis and things like that. So you have to keep the bad ideas so that when they crop up, you can argue against them. So that's the same with arguing against radicalization in religion or anything else that's radicalized. I mean, I'm a feminist. I know Hissy is too, but there are aspects that are argued in radical feminism that I will argue against because they're wrong and they're too extreme. And that's the point. You have to have these voices come out that are over the top, that have a thing that is detrimental to society. Even if they're not going to do it, if they're saying it, and then you have to be able to speak against them. So if you're going to censor and cancel everything, you lose that power in society. And I think it's important to have that.
Yeah. And, once again, engage with a variety of media. Expand your horizons. However, when you do so, engage so critically and prioritize your self-care.
Yeah.
I will say as well, anything that any of us have said in this stream, it is absolutely your right to disagree and criticize.
It's all just our opinions.
Just because it was our right to say it, because these were all statements of opinion.
Or,
Except-
in the words of Jeffrey Lebowski, that's just like your opinion, man.
Okay, kill it. We're done.
We're done.
I'm censoring that. We're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're done.
So, anyone have any shilling they want to do?
No shilling as such, but bit of information, because I'm aware that a lot of this audience are normally following the Asterix streams, which gives me the warm and fuzzies because it makes me think that you're all probably vaguely interested in classical reception. In just under 2 hours' time, at the top of the hour, at 7 o'clock UK time, it's 2 o'clock EST, #Classics Twitter Movie are doing a watch along and a tweet along to Oh Brother Where Art Thou? And I know there are several people in this community who will enjoy that film. By all means, join in, and you'll probably learn something if you follow other people's tweets as well, because all the academics get involved and they share information, and it's just a really nice environment, and everyone's welcome to join in. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I will be asleep.
Fair enough. You can check out the tweets later; they'll still be there.
I will.
Dave?
Nothing. Critical questions tomorrow.
I have Tuesday morning my time, Monday evening US time, stupid o'clock UK time. I'm doing a Stump Jen. I'm hoping to have a special guest on, but this person hasn't confirmed yet, so I'm not mentioning who it is. But other than that, there'll be various other people who usually appear for these shows. Matt, as in Almost a Doctor, should be there. So it should be a lot of fun. They're always a lot of fun.
Your Stump Gen streams make my brain hurt.
You have to be on one of them eventually here, Steve. So we can get people asking you history questions, because it's good.
I had to miss the end of the last one because I was expecting a phone interview.
It went really long, the last one.
Yeah. Did you get around to trying to answer my SCOTUS question?
I can't remember now. We answered a lot of questions. We tried to answer all of them.
Yeah. It was how did SCOTUS rule on whether, or how did SCOTUS rule regarding whether or not tomatoes are a fruit?
Oh, we did go into that, didn't we, Jeff? We did a whole discussion on what is and isn't fruits, and should they be?
Yeah, no, that's what prompted me asking. And
okay. Well, we went down that line, and I think we did answer your question in the end. I think actually it came. I think Chad and Sam answered it actually.
Yeah.
In the end, so.
But
I can't remember.
I know.
It was really late by the time we got to that.
I know one of them. As soon as Jem read it out from you, I knew the answer ring. So
yeah.
About the Harris Hawk.
Yeah. But yeah, the Supreme Court essentially ruled that while a tomato is botanically speaking a fruit, it's used as a vegetable, So under tax law, it fell under the category of vegetable.
Ah, yeah. Well, we argued that there was a lot of crossover and stuff. So
Yeah.
but I can't
But yeah,
remember us getting
Yeah,
down to
the
that point.
Supreme
out
Court
again.
actually had it was one of the. I think it was like during the early 1800s, but yeah, the Supreme Court actually had to make a ruling on whether or not tomatoes were a fruit.
Do I have to get the chicken out again?
Do
Do I have to go get a coconut?
I think there's something seriously wrong when the Supreme Court of the United States has to rule on what a tomato is.
Well, it was basically the case was basically because someone was trying to go through a tax loophole.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, folks, the reason Dave wasn't shilling on stream is because he dropped about 20 links in the chat and was shilling there instead. So thank you, Dave, because you shilled all of us. So nice one.
Yeah, shill master Dave.
Shill master.
Also, as always, there's secular D&D on Saturday and Media Musings on Sunday. However, watch my Twitter because at least one of those may end up changing times.
Yeah.
I'll know sometime the beginning of this coming week.
Cool.
Also, Scummer, do you have anything to shill?
I've got nothing planned for my channel next week. Obviously, Hissy and I got to talk at some point about when we're going to start season 2 of Asterix Up. I think it's going to be sometime in the next few weeks, but we are having a little break. But there are plans afoot to bring it back.
There are definitely plans afoot to bring it back before the end of the year.
Mm.
Also,
all being well.
Also, sometime this month, I will be dragging Hissy and kicking and screaming to discuss A Christmas Story, because I feel it will be both an entertaining and enlightening discussion in regards to the differences between U.S. and other countries' gun culture.
Okay. If you're going to do it this month, you haven't got a lot of time, have you? It's the 29th of November.
No, okay. I mean, not this month, but next month.
Okay, in December, that's fine.
Yeah.
Is this a Christmas movie of some description?
Yes.
Well, that's debatable.
Yeah, it's a Christmas. Yeah, a Christmas story. With the Red Ryder BB gun, with the compass and the stock and the thing which tells time.
Mm-hmm.
Odd movie.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to cause... You've had a hissy fit today, but once I get started on American gun culture, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I think we could only handle one of us for that.
Paul Ring can barely handle me for that, never mind anything else. He's seen me go off on one on that.
Yeah. Which is why I think it will be both an entertaining and enlightening conversation.
And Ring won't be able to hear afterwards.
No one will be able to hear afterwards.
But anyways, let's move on to taglines.
Come on, you're the host. Where we're starting.
Let's start with Scummer.
I don't do taglines, you know that. Also, just say salute and out. So
yeah. Hissy?
Take care, be good, and as always, if you can't be good, be careful.
Dave?
I haven't got one, and I can't remember Jen's to steal it.
Yeah, you can't steal it because there's a combo with me and...
Yeah. And remember, indoctrination is a hell of a selfie stick, so don't choke on it.
Bye.
Bye.